This is Bone Chillers to disturb your dreams. Dare to join us? Click subscribe, ring the bell. But remember, we cannot guarantee your safety from the nightmares that await. Prepare to be thrilled, chilled, and filled with a sense of dread you'll find nowhere else. Welcome to the darkness. We've been waiting.
The curious case of the Canvey Island creature. Lucia Castellan had chased the unknown across continents, debunking legends and myths with a scientific precision that made her the bane of hoaxers worldwide. But the reports from Canvey Island had piqued her curiosity. Multiple sightings, frantic calls to local authorities, and even a shaky video clip showing a bipedal fish-like creature emerging from the waters made her decide to investigate. Upon her arrival, the locals were unsurprisingly reticent. The quaint seaside town's tight-knit community exchanged whispered stories over the counter at the local pub. Yet they clammed up when Lucia, with her notebook and analytical gaze, approached. One evening, as the sun stained the horizon with shades of burnt orange and crimson, Lucia found herself by the shore, the gentle sloshing of the waves her sole companion. That was until a hunched old man, with a beard as white as sea foam, approached. "You're chasing shadows, young lady," he rasped, his blue eyes piercing. Lucia was undeterred. "I believe there's a logical explanation for everything." The old man chuckled, revealing a mouth missing more than a few teeth. "Some things, lass, are older than logic." He handed her a tattered journal, its leather cover scarred and worn. "Read this, but remember, some truths are dangerous." The journal belonged to a fisherman from the late 1800s named Edgar Worthington. He spoke of a community of creatures, half human, half fish, dwelling beneath the waters. They were remnants of an ancient civilization that once dominated the British Isles, long before the Romans or Celts. This forgotten race was pushed underwater by man's fear and aggression, and over time they evolved, their legs fusing to form tails, their lungs adapting to the watery depths. But every few generations, some were born with legs, reminders of their once terrestrial existence. The community would release them on the shores, hoping they'd integrate. Yet mankind saw them as monsters, hunted them, driving them back into the abyss. Lucia was intrigued. It sounded like folklore, tales spun by imaginative minds. However, that night her skepticism was shattered. As the moonlight danced on the water, she saw a figure emerging, a creature with shimmering scales, webbed feet and deep-set, mournful eyes. It looked at Lucia, its gaze pleading, before another figure grabbed it, a human with the same mournful eyes, his face etched with centuries of pain. They vanished beneath the waves, leaving Lucia dumbstruck. The next morning, she found the old man waiting for her. "They wanted you to see," he began. "I was once like you, young and disbelieving. But then they showed me their city beneath the waves, their history recorded in watery halls. They? Who are they?" Lucia demanded. The old man sighed, revealing his webbed hands. We wanted you to know, to understand. The creature you saw last night, he's my son. He has legs like our ancestors, but he cannot live among humans, for he is hunted, feared." Lucia struggled to comprehend. "Why show me?" "Because we hope that you can change the narrative. Let the world know we exist, but not as monsters. We are simply remnants of a past long forgotten." Lucia left Canvey Island with a story, but not the one she had expected. She wrote of an ancient civilization, of creatures misunderstood, painting a picture of a world where myth and reality blurred. Yet her accounts were met with skepticism, dismissed as elaborate hoaxes. Lucia, once the paragon of logic, now faced ridicule from her peers. But every time doubt crept into her mind, she'd remember those mournful eyes, the shimmering scales, and the hidden city beneath the waves. And she knew that somewhere out there, on the shores of Canvey Island, the past lived, waiting for the world to remember.
The Stonehenge Seance. As the summer solstice approached, the rolling hills of England came alive with whispers of a dare to hold a seance at Stonehenge during the longest day of the year. It was a challenge not many were willing to take, but 5 college friends, Alice, Jamie, Rosalind, Tom and Callum, embarked on this reckless adventure, intoxicated by the thrill and the tales they'd been hearing. As the day waned, the group gathered in a tight circle within the centre of the ancient stone pillars. They'd brought with them a tattered book Rosalind had borrowed from the university's hidden archives, rumoured to contain genuine druidic incantations. The fading sunlight gave the stones an eerie luminescence while shadows stretched infinitely beyond them. "Are we really doing this?" Callum asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Rosalind, ever the leader, replied, "It's just for fun. What's the worst that could happen?" With a circle of lit candles surrounding them, the group began the chant from the book. The air turned frigid and a deep fog began to envelop Stonehenge. A wind stirred, carrying with it a ghostly hum, a mournful lament from a time long forgotten. Suddenly the ground trembled, and from the midst of the stones, ethereal figures materialized. Their garments, reminiscent of druidic robes, billowed in the unnatural wind, and their faces were hidden in the shadows of their hoods. Rosalind dropped the book in shock. "What? Who are you?" "We are the keepers of the sacred stones," one figure intoned. "You, children of invaders and oppressors, have awakened us." Tom stepped forward, trying to mask his fear. "We meant no disrespect, we just wanted to see if the legends were real." The spirits seemed to float closer, their presence chilling to the bone. "You dare invoke the rights of the ancients for mere sport?" Another spirit hissed. "You must rectify the sins of your ancestors or remain trapped here in a timeless purgatory." The friends exchanged panicked glances. "What do you mean by sins?" Jamie managed to ask. One of the spirits moved closer, its unseen eyes piercing Jamie. "Your forebears defiled this sacred land. They hunted us, mocked our rituals, and tarnished our legacy. Each of you carries a bloodline tainted with these sins. If you wish to escape our wrath, you must complete a task to cleanse your lineage." "And if we refuse?" Alice questioned, her voice quivering. "Then you will remain here, eternally bound to the stones," the spirit replied, its voice echoing into the fog. Seeing no way out, the group reluctantly agreed. One by one, the spirits presented them with challenges. Jamie had to perform a druidic dance beneath the moon, moving to the rhythm of the ancient world. Tom had to recreate a sacred potion using herbs and plants that grew around Stonehenge, guided only by cryptic clues. Rosalind was given a riddle about the stars that she had to solve, while Callum had to sing a forgotten lament of the Druids, its mournful notes chilling the very air. When it was Alice's turn, she was handed a small, ancient-looking dagger. "Your ancestor was a direct perpetrator in the killing of one of our most revered Druids," the spirit intoned. "With this blade, shed a drop of your own blood. Let it touch the ground, a symbolic gesture of giving back life." Hesitating only for a moment, Alice pricked her finger. The drop of blood fell onto the grass, instantly absorbed. As each friend completed their task, the tension in the air lessened, the fog lifting just slightly. Having fulfilled their challenges, they faced the spirits, waiting for judgment. "You have shown sincerity in your actions," the leading spirit said. "But remember, this land has memories. Respect its power and its past. Go now with the understanding that the past is always with us, and our ancestors' actions echo in our own lives." In a swirl of mist, the spirits vanished, leaving the friends in stunned silence. As the sun's first light began to break, Stonehenge stood still, its ancient stones a testament to times long past. The group left, forever changed, carrying with them the weight and wisdom of the ancients. Their dare had turned into a lesson, a reminder that some places hold mysteries that should be approached with reverence. Word soon spread of their encounter, and Stonehenge was once again regarded with a renewed sense of respect. And every solstice thereafter, locals would gather not for dares or challenges, but to honour the memory of those who once stood guard over the sacred stones. The cursed Philosine. Dr. Elijah Reynolds was a renowned cryptozoologist, having dedicated his life to finding creatures that many believed were either extinct or never existed at all. His latest obsession? The Philosine, or the Tasmanian tiger. While many believed it had been hunted to extinction in the 20th century, recent reports from the heart of Tasmania's wilderness suggested something else entirely. Locals spoke in hushed tones of a creature, resembling the Philosine that had become something otherworldly. Tales spoke of animals and sometimes even people disappearing, only to be found later drained of life, bearing peculiar three-pronged claw marks. The stories claimed this was not the work of any normal predator, but of a creature that had evolved beyond the natural world. Elijah set up camp deep in the Tasmanian forest. The chilling cries of unknown animals echoed through the night. The first few days were uneventful. He found some old tracks and droppings, but nothing concrete. One morning, however, as the first light crept through the trees, he stumbled upon an abandoned settler's hut. Curiosity piqued, he decided to explore. Inside, amidst the decay and ruin, he discovered a tattered journal. The entries spoke of sightings of the Philosine, but they took a disturbing turn. The writer claimed the creature was hunting him, stalking him through the woods. "It's not natural," a particularly frantic entry read. "Its eyes, they glow with an eerie light, and its cry sounds like tortured souls. I hear it outside every night. I don't think it's alone." The last entry was abrupt and unsettling. "It's at the door. I can hear its growls, feel its breath. If anyone reads this, leave this place. It's cursed." Shaken, Elijah left the hut, but not before pocketing the journal. As the day wore on, he began to feel an increasing sense of unease. Every rustle in the trees, every shadow seemed to come alive. That evening, while reviewing footage from his trail cameras, he froze. Amongst the images of nocturnal animals, there it was, a creature resembling the Philosine, but its eyes glowed an unnatural shade of green. He barely slept that night, haunted by the journal's words and the image of the cursed Philosine. In the dead of night, a chilling cry echoed around his campsite. Startled, he grabbed his flashlight and ventured out. At the edge of his camp, he found fresh tracks, the unique three-pronged claw marks that had been described in local tales. It was clear. The creature was watching him. The following days were a blur of terror for Elijah. No matter where he went, the creature was always a step behind. His cameras captured it lurking just outside the frame, its glowing eyes fixated on him. One evening, as Elijah was setting up a new camera trap, he felt a cold breeze on the back of his neck. Turning around slowly, he came face to face with the cursed Philosine. Its eyes glowed brighter than he could have imagined, and an eerie hum seemed to emanate from the creature, echoing the cries of its long-lost kin. Frozen in fear, Elijah watched as the creature circled him, each step deliberate and predatory. Suddenly, the Philosine lunged, but instead of attacking, it passed straight through him like a ghost. Stunned, Elijah fell to the ground, gasping for breath. The creature disappeared into the woods, its cries fading into the night. Days turned into weeks, and Elijah realized that the Philosine wasn't interested in harming him. Instead, it seemed to be leading him, guiding him deeper into the forest. Trusting his instincts, he followed the creature's subtle signs, a track here, a distant cry there. Finally, he arrived at a clearing with an ancient stone circle at its center. In the middle, a large stone slab lay, covered in intricate carvings. As Elijah approached, he realized the carvings depicted the Philosine, surrounded by settlers and indigenous Tasmanians. At the center was a phrase in an old dialect, which roughly translated to, "Respect the spirits of the land, or face their wrath." It became clear to Elijah that the cursed Philosine was a guardian of the forest, a manifestation of the land's anger at the settlers who had hunted its kin to extinction. Its evolution into a supernatural being was a testament to the land's power and resilience. With newfound respect and understanding, Elijah left the forest, vowing never to return. He shared his findings with the world, not as a cryptozoologist proving the existence of a mythical creature, but as a storyteller, sharing the legend of the cursed Philosine and the importance of respecting the spirits of the land. And deep in the heart of Tasmania's wilderness, the ghostly cries of the Philosine continued to echo, a haunting reminder of the past and a warning for the future. The Pendle Hill possession. Samantha and Mark had always dreamed of owning a home in the English countryside, so when they stumbled upon a picturesque stone cottage nestled on the outskirts of Pendle Hill, it seemed like fate. The price was shockingly affordable, but the local villagers had their reservations. Pendle Hill was infamous for the witch trials of 1612, where a dozen locals were accused of witchcraft and executed. The first few weeks in their new home were blissful. Samantha took long walks in the moors, while Mark, a writer, felt inspired by the hill's looming silhouette. However, as the days passed, Samantha began to act oddly. She would wake up in the middle of the night and whisper incantations that Mark couldn't understand. Some nights, she'd stand at the foot of Pendle Hill, staring up as if expecting something or someone to come down. One evening, as Mark was typing away, he heard Samantha chanting in the garden. He peered out and saw her forming a circle with a variety of strange objects. "Sam, what are you doing?" he shouted, alarmed. Samantha turned, her eyes vacant and distant. "She wants justice," she murmured. Mark was shaken. "Who wants justice?" Samantha, in a voice that was not entirely her own, said, "I am Elizabeth Southerns, and I demand retribution." Elizabeth Southerns, also known as Old Demdike, was one of the accused witches executed on Pendle Hill. Mark had read about her while researching the area. "Sam, this isn't funny," Mark said, approaching her cautiously. But Samantha wasn't listening. Her body trembled, and she began to shout, "Accused! Condemned! Wronged! I will not rest!" Mark was torn between fear and concern. He reached out, hoping to snap her out of it, but she recoiled, hissing, "The lineage of those who judged me lives on. They will pay." For days, Samantha's possession became more pronounced. Objects would fly across rooms, doors would slam, and whispering voices echoed throughout the house. Mark tried to seek help from the villagers, but they shunned him, murmuring about the curse of Pendle Hill. Desperate, he sought the counsel of a local historian. The man, with his deep-set eyes and wispy beard, listened intently and then said, "You must seek out the descendant of Roger Nowell. He was the magistrate responsible for the trials. Only his bloodline can appease the spirit." "But how?" Mark asked. The historian handed Mark an old pendant. "This belonged to Elizabeth Southerns. You must place it around the neck of a Nowell descendant and have them stand atop Pendle Hill at midnight. It's said that this act will grant Old Demdike her peace." Mark was sceptical but desperate. He searched and found a distant relative of Roger Nowell, a young woman named Alice. He explained the situation, and seeing his distress, she agreed to help. The night was moonless and ominous as they made their way to the top of Pendle Hill. Samantha, more possessed than ever, led the way, chanting and singing in a voice that sent shivers down Mark's spine. Once atop the hill, Mark quickly placed the pendant around Alice's neck. Samantha, or rather Elizabeth, approached them, her eyes gleaming. "Justice," she whispered. The wind picked up and the hill seemed to hum with energy. A spectral apparition of Old Demdike appeared, hovering over them. She reached out, touching the pendant, and then looked at Alice. "I am sorry for what my ancestors did," Alice said, her voice trembling. "Please find peace." The spirit of Old Demdike nodded, her gaze softening. "The debt has been acknowledged. I shall rest." As the clock struck midnight, a blinding light enveloped the hill, and then all was calm. Samantha collapsed, and when she woke up, she was herself again. The villagers, having witnessed the event from afar, welcomed Mark and Samantha back. The curse of Pendle Hill had been lifted, and the spirit of Old Demdike finally found her peace. From that day on, the couple lived in harmony with the land and its history. And while the scars of the past can never be erased, acknowledgement and understanding can pave the way for healing and hope.
The Whispering Woods of Witchwood Forest. Julia, an urban legend enthusiast, had heard of many tales, but none intrigued her as much as the Whispering Woods of Witchwood Forest. It was said that at the heart of the forest lay a grove where no local dared to tread after sunset. They believed that whoever entered would hear the whispers of those who had gone missing in the forest over the years. One evening, fueled by curiosity and armed with a lantern and a recorder, Julia decided to camp in that very grove. As night fell, the dense woods surrounding the grove obscured the horizon and isolated Julia from the rest of the world. The symphony of crickets lulled her into a sense of security, that was, until the moon was directly overhead. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the grove, making her lantern flicker. Julia strained her ears and heard faint whispers weaving through the trees. She felt an inexplicable urge to follow them deeper into the forest. The whispers grew louder and more distinct. "Left, right, don't look back." They guided her. As Julia ventured deeper into the woods, the trees appeared older, gnarled and contorted, their shadows dancing like spectres. The guiding whispers led Julia to a small clearing where a circle of ancient stones stood. In the center of the circle, an apparition took form, a woman draped in a flowing gown, her face pale and eyes hollow. "Who are you?" Julia mustered the courage to ask. The ghostly figure gestured to the stones around them. This was once a sacred place, a meeting point for those who sought knowledge from beyond. However, one night a group of men came with greed in their hearts, desecrating the circle and trapping our souls in these woods. I am but one of the many voices you hear. Julia's pulse quickened. The whispers. The apparition nodded. The trapped souls, forever lost, reaching out for help. Our only hope is for someone to right the wrong done to us. Tears welled up in the spirit's eyes. My name is Eleanor. I had a family, a life. I was taken, lost, and now I exist only in this liminal space. Moved by Eleanor's tale, Julia asked, "What can I do to help?" "You must restore the circle," Eleanor whispered. "Find the missing stone and place it back in its rightful position at dawn. Only then will our souls find peace." With a sense of purpose, Julia scoured the forest with Eleanor's guidance. The whispers continued to guide her, becoming urgent pleas. "Hurry! Dawn is near. Save us." Finally, just before the first light of dawn, they found the missing stone, half buried under a thicket. With great effort, Julia dragged it to the clearing and placed it in its rightful spot. As the first rays of the sun pierced the horizon, the stones started to glow. The whispering ceased, replaced by a harmonious hum. One by one, the trapped souls appeared, each nodding in gratitude before fading into the light. Eleanor approached Julia, a smile gracing her ethereal face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice no longer filled with sorrow. With one final nod, she too faded away. Julia, overwhelmed by the night's events, fell to her knees. As the sun rose, bathing the clearing in its golden glow, she felt a profound connection to the forest and its history. When she returned to the village, Julia shared the tale with the locals. While some scoffed, many believed. The grove became a place of reverence, and the legend of the Whispering Woods transformed into a tale of redemption and hope. Years later, travelers and locals alike would venture into the forest to pay their respects. And on some nights, if one listened closely, they might just hear a soft whisper on the wind, not of sorrow or despair, but of gratitude and peace.
Thank you for watching, and remember, the darkness awaits. Until our paths cross again, stay fearful and stay subscribed.